Hello and welcome to another one of my videos. This time I have something a bit different for you, but I hope that you will like it. I was going to do a video for you about the Wheel of the Year and the different celebrations that are associated with it, but I think it will be better if we follow the wheel and discuss each celebration as it comes up, rather than just talking about all of them at the same time. The Wheel of the Year is of course connected with tarot and with the Decan Wheel, so I think discussing this will give us another layer of understanding and will enrich our knowledge. It is shown, of course, in the Four of Wands, as you might remember, where we can see a completion of something that we worked on for some time. So this is a celebration of accomplishing something, but at the same time, this accomplishment opens another chapter in our life. So we will soon experience the spring equinox in the northern hemisphere. For the southern hemisphere, this will be the autumnal equinox. I will be describing everything from the perspective of northern hemisphere, because this is the perspective that works together with the Decan Wheel and with Thoth Tarot. The equinox happens on March 20th, and this is a time when the Earth's position in relation to the Sun makes day and night equal. So we can imagine that energetically it will be like resetting our relationship with the Sun. So this is the beginning of spring, of course, and the Sun will start the process of nature coming back to life after winter. The day of the equinox marks the beginning of this new cycle, a day after the Sun enters the sign of Aries, and this is when we get the new energy for action. The first decan of Aries is ruled by Mars, so this is the Two of Wands. We are clearing the space for new ideas, we are making new plans, and we feel this fresh impulse to start something new. This transition of seasons is under the rulership of the Queen of Wands, because she rules the last decan of Pisces, the Ten of Cups, and the two first decans of Aries, so the Two and Three of Wands. And you can imagine what amazing power this card is showing us. She has access to this expansive and lively energy of the beginning of spring. And no wonder she's so confident and able to achieve so many things in her life. And she is also associated with physical beauty and attractiveness that she uses to her advantage. And we will see her characteristics echoed in different goddesses in a moment when we start talking about how spring equinox is and was celebrated in different parts of the world. So we already know what happens in the sky, and now let's find out how people respond to this event around the world. Persian calendar begins on the day of the equinox, and this is the celebration of Nowruz. The tradition is linked to the legend about mythical Iranian king Jamshid, who saves mankind from a winter destined to kill every living creature. To defeat the killer winter, Jamshid constructed a throne studded with gems. He had demons raise him above the earth into the heavens, and there he sat, shining like the sun. The world's creatures gathered and scattered jewels around him and proclaimed that this was the new day. So this is what Nowruz means. And this is the first day of Farvadin, the first month of the Iranian calendar. People prepare for the celebrations by cleaning their houses, buying new clothes, and also buying flowers, especially hyacinths and tulips. During the day of Nowruz, people visit their family, friends, neighbors. Number 7 is very important, and there are 7 foods that are always prepared for this day. So we have grain sprouts grown in a dish. There's a sweet pudding made from wheat germ. We also have olive, vinegar, apple, garlic, and sumac. A sumac is a type of dried fruit with a tart flavor, and this is ground to a powder and used as spice. Painted eggs, candles, coins, and mirrors are also sometimes added to the table, as well as a bowl of water, a goldfish, and a book of wisdom, which would be usually one of the religious books like Quran or Bible. So we see that this celebration is not connected to any religion. It's celebrated by Christians and Muslims, as well as people from other religions and different backgrounds. And the significance of number 7 in the feast is explained as 4 elements plus 3 forms of life, so plants, animals, and humans. And of course, when we think of number 7, we immediately think of Venus and the 7th Sephira of Netzach. And this link is not that far-fetched when we think about other attributes of Venus that are present. So this is the mirror, the apple, olive oil, fish, and coins. Indian national calendar begins 2 days after equinox or 1 day after during leap years. And there are over 15 festivals in March and April to mark the first month in the calendar. And this is when Lord Brahma is said to have created the universe. In some cultures, the date of the celebration depends on the moon as well. So, for example, a Jewish Passover generally falls on the first full moon after the equinox. And Catholic Church has probably the most elaborate way of calculating when Easter falls, and it's the first Sunday after the ecclesiastical full moon that occurs on or soonest after the 21st of March, so after equinox. And of course, ecclesiastical full moon doesn't have to align with the actual full moon because it's just the result of imprecise calculation and not a result of observation. I think we all know what Easter and Passover are about, so I won't go into too much detail here. Let's look at something that we don't talk about every day, some of the older festivals associated with this time of year. In Scandinavia, we have Disablut, a sacrificial holiday in honor of female deities called Disir, who were associated with fate, but were also fertility goddesses, and their worship was also connected to worship of the spirits of the dead. So we can see that the older the female deity is, the more they are associated with a wider scope of influence, ruling both fertility and the underworld. And we see a similarity here to the feminine energy of the third Sephira Bina associated with Saturn. And this is where both life and death begins. It is all potential, but also it's a gateway between what is divine and what is mortal. In Slavic countries, the equinox celebrations start with the drowning of Majanana. She is also called Morana or Morena. She also has similar names in different Slavic countries. So Majanana is associated with death, rebirth, dreams, and nightmares. And an effigy of her is burned and then drowned in a river during spring equinox to ensure the death of winter and to hasten the coming of spring. Other festivities follow during the next few days, and they sometimes lasted until the nearest full moon. There were bonfires, the houses were being cleaned and cleansed with herb smoke. One of the most important activities is making painted eggs. So this is a symbol of new life and new energy. They are bringing prosperity and abundance into the house. And they are also given as gifts. This again shows us that it's a time of death and rebirth. The old must die so the new cycle can begin, and we need to prepare by cleansing ourselves of all that is no longer necessary, of all that no longer serves us, because we need to make space for new energy in our life and in our homes. It's very interesting that the festivities were in honor of a god Yaryło, associated with spring, fertility, rebirth, and agriculture. And his myth is very similar to that of Persephone. He also is abducted and taken into the underworld by the adversary of his father. In spring, just like Persephone, he comes back from the underworld and makes all nature come to life again. So here we have a masculine god, but he is sometimes depicted as a girl dressed in man's clothes riding a horse. So it's possible that this deity started as feminine and then was transformed into a young man, or that the gender of the deity was sometimes depicted differently, depending on what aspect of their power was being represented. And we will see this again when we start talking about another very old goddess in a moment. And now let's have a look at who Ostara is. Ostara, or Eostre, is the Germanic goddess of dawn, and she is also associated with spring and fertility. One of the myths about her says that she turned a bird into a hare, but even in its new form, it was still laying colorful eggs. Her very existence has been heavily disputed, but I think there is enough evidence for us to say that there was definitely a cult of her, with feasts in her name, that was later replaced by Christian celebration of Easter. And it is too much of a coincidence that the name of the goddess sounds so similar to Easter, especially because in almost all languages, the word for Easter is closer to Passover or Pesach in Hebrew. Only in German and English the name is different, Easter or Ostern. And it's exactly where the cult of our goddess is said to originate from. Easter and Ostara are also very often connected with the Babylonian goddess Ishtar, the queen of heaven, known earlier in ancient Mesopotamia as Inana. And she was the goddess of sex, love, war, justice, and political power. It's interesting that a myth that we see over and over in similar forms is also associated with her. She went into the underworld to conquer the domain of her sister, but she was deemed guilty by the 7 judges of the underworld and she was sentenced to death. She was eventually allowed to leave the underworld, but her husband, the god of shepherds, was forced to stay in her place. He is allowed to spend half of the year with his wife, but when he leaves the underworld, his sister, the goddess of agriculture, must remain there in his place. Inana and Ishtar are associated with planet Venus, so we can say that she is an equivalent of Aphrodite or Astarte. Ishtar is referred to as a masculine figure in some myths, and again it is not clear why it was done. It might be because some aspects of her were more associated with masculine energy. A planet Venus has 2 aspects in astrology. It can be either a morning star when it rises before the sun, or evening star if it rises after the sun. And the 2 aspects of Ishtar could be related to this concept. The morning star is associated with war, and the evening star is associated with love. I also have a very nice explanation for you relating to why we keep seeing this story about the descending into the underworld in so many different myths. And this is a quote from Wikipedia. The story of Inanna's descent into the underworld is a reference to an astronomical phenomenon associated with retrograde Venus. 7 days before retrograde, Venus makes its inferior conjunction with the Sun. It disappears from the evening sky. The 7-day period between this disappearance and the conjunction itself is seen as the astronomical phenomenon on which the myth of descent was based. After the conjunction, 7 more days elapse before Venus appears as the morning star, corresponding to the ascent from the underworld. Venus goes retrograde every 18 months, so her descent into the underworld doesn't always coincide with winter months, but it gives rise to all of the myths about different gods and goddesses dying and being reborn, or going into the underworld and coming back again. We see that all of us humans celebrate this special time of spring equinox in a similar way. We clean our houses, we get rid of old stale energy that we gathered over the winter, and we invite new and fresh energy into our lives and into our homes. We all celebrate a return, a rebirth, a new hope, and a new life. I hope you have a lovely equinox, and let's hope that this new cycle brings us all love and peace. So that's it for today. I hope that you enjoyed this video, and please let me know if you would like to see more of them, or if you just don't care and want to see tarot tutorials. I really enjoyed making this video for you, so I would like to do another one at the end of April, and that one would be about Beltane. So please let me know what you think. Of course, always please remember to like the video and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. I would like to thank everyone who is already supporting the channel. I appreciate your help very, very much. And if you want to start supporting me, please consider a one-time PayPal donation, or you can also become my patron for just €3 per month. So it's a bit like getting me a cup of coffee to say thanks every month. And if you consider how much you could be paying for a course on tarot, this really is a good value option. Every little bit of support and every donation is great help and is greatly appreciated. All links are in the video description below. So once again, thank you so much for today, and I will see you in the next video very soon. Thanks, bye!